I'm Dan Snow. Welcome to Voices of the First World War. In the years leading up to the centenary of the war, the last of those who actually experienced it have passed away. But the Imperial War Museums and the BBC had recorded interviews with many veterans to try to capture what it was like to actually be there. This series listens to those stories.
Looking back now, most of it at the time, well, you were numb. You understand what I'm trying to get at?
To be quite frank, our horizon was the immediate area in which we were engaged. I hardly ever thought of, what the morrow might bring or what the long-term strategy of the war was.
Here we were, a gang of boys who were committed to this extraordinary range of activities and had to go through with it, and all the time one was saying to oneself, if they can take it, I can take it.
Old men remembering. Veterans of the First World War telling their stories. History is just a vast collection of stories. Memories are selective and manipulated, but there's still something so powerful about listening to these World War I experiences.
I mean, there had been the talk with the German Navy, we want 8. We were building up our battleships and all that kind of thing, you see. We weren't a bit surprised at all.
I don't think they'd even thought about it. It came as a bolt from the blue, I think, so far as we were concerned.
Well, we expected war to be declared, and as Big Ben struck him, the crowds there, and everybody cheered because we were at war.
It was a lovely August morning. I can remember it, I can see it as plain as now. There's a newsagent's shop, and outside was a big placard, war declared on Germany.
We sang Rule Britannia and Britons never shall be slaves, and then marched back to Buckingham Palace, and we said we'd join the army the next day. Full of enthusiasm, not drink, just enthusiasm.
Everybody was excited. Any time they saw a soldier, he was right at the top of the tree, cheering and all that. Everybody was stood in groups talking. We've got to beat the Germans, and they're already setting off to enlist quite a number that day as it broke out.
The King came out and the Queen, then we cheered and sang some more, and that was August the 4th. I went back the next day, I thought, Christ, I'm going to join the army. I've got to give 2 weeks' notice in.
Sergeant Thomas Painting, Stretcher Bearer William Collins, Lance Corporal Jim Davis and Private Horace Calvert remember the day war broke out. The BBC and Imperial War Museum's holdings include a major oral history resource of remarkable recordings. And in this series, we bring the two collections together for the first time. Many of these interviews were done not for immediate use or broadcast, but because it was felt that this was a diminishing resource that could never be replenished.
Hello, hello, who's your lady friend? Who's the little girl by your side?
The men remember the random, the extraordinary, the personal. It's not the narrative of a history book. The open microphone was there to capture these memories for future generations. Future generations like us.
Got my bike out, said to Mother, I said, I'm going for a ride this morning, Mum. I went for a ride and I went to the Warwick depot and enlisted at the Warwick depot. They wanted me to go in the Warwicks where they had a red coat. Well, every soldiers in those days had to walk out in the uniform. You see, red coat if you went anywhere or whatever your uniform was. Well, I didn't want to be a pillar box. I didn't want a red coat. I said, what's that regiment have a green jacket? Oh, he said, the King's Royal Rifle Corps. He said, 4 battalions, plenty of foreign service. I said, that's the regiment for me. I didn't know that it went fast to the others and had black belts and... But anyway, the green jacket appealed to me, so I joined it.
Did you have a medical inspection that day?
Oh yes, very severe. Just stripped stark naked, and a hand down saying cough, see if we were ruptured, and I was past fit. There was a chap also stripped down there. I said, I've got an awful shocking sight. I hate the sight of varicose veins. And of course he was turned down because of that, and he was crying because he'd been turned down. Probably laughing, I think, afterwards, a few years later.
These men recall in great detail the process of joining up, their memories clearly coloured by what followed. They also talk about the conditions of the trenches, the brutality of the battlefield, the experience of seeing their first casualty and hearing their first shell, their daily and nightly routines as soldiers, pilots, or sailors of all ranks, and their psychological state in the face of so much trauma.
Now, you struggle with these stresses which are almost overpowering and which may become quite overpowering, which may break you down in hysterics.
Charles Carrington, a junior officer in the Royal Warwickshire Regiment, was interviewed for the seminal BBC documentary series The Great War in 1964. Here he is hauntingly honest about the stress of battle.
And of course everybody who remembers battle scenes remembers occasions when someone did go off into a complete mental breakdown, into hysterical fits of various sorts, which the doctors eventually admitted and described as shell shock. But there were ways in which you could maintain your self-control. And there is some strange connection between small physical actions. If you hum a little tune to yourself and feel that you can quietly get through this tune before the next explosion, it gives you a sort of curious feeling of safety. Or you start drumming with your fingers on your knee and have a quite irrational desire to complete this little ritual. These minute things protect you from the nervous collapse, which may come at any moment.
Henry Williamson was a private with the London Rifle Brigade, and later lieutenant in the Machine Gun Corps. After the war he became an author, writing Tarka the Otter.
I was a young soldier of 17, just before the war. I joined a territorial regiment for the sport and the boxing and swimming. And when, on the 3rd of August 1914, mobilization orders came out, we were all very excited and apprehensive. Because the whole feeling in the air was one of anxiety, at the same time great endeavor, and most of us wanted to be out in France before the war was over by Christmas.
Many of the Imperial War Museum interviews were done in the homes of elderly men all over the UK by the Imperial War Museum oral history interviewer Peter Hart, recorded here talking to Jim Davis in 1987.
What made you so happy that war was declared?
Because I was young and stupid, I suppose. Full of patriotism and boy's own paper, that's on which my boyhood was based.
So you had a genuine enthusiasm at the time?
Oh, God, yes. Couldn't get in the army quick enough. It was a bit of an adventure. I was a bloody hero because I was going to join the army. I liked it rather. It was something new. It was another part. I enjoyed it. Besides, I hadn't seen very much of the world. I was a little two-bit actor.
It's funny now to listen back. And for some people, I suppose they might be just disembodied voices. But for me, these are real people that I met.
Historian Peter Hart.
Jim Davis was an incredible character. And if you listen to the story of how he was recruited, it's quite sad because he makes it clear that he joined up on a wave of patriotism and boys' own comics and enthusiasm. But you don't see him like I saw him when I was interviewing him because, of course, he'd lost his leg. It was shot off in 1918.
Lots of fellas were drunk, you know. Their wives were in the ranks, clinging to them.
In the morning, while all the troops were packing up and putting the finishing touches, the Royal Artillery Band played on the square, and one of the tunes I remember it played was the hit waltz of the year called Destiny. Now, if ever a tune reflected what was going to happen to those two batteries, it was that tune, because within 14 days, one of them had been blown to hell. That was L Battery. On the 1st of September, it was caught in the morning mist, and 4 of its guns were destroyed.
And we got to the station, and we get on the train, and to find out where we're going, we've simply got to look through the carriage window and see what places we'd pass to give us an idea. So we soon got an idea that we were going towards the East Coast, passing certain places, you know, on the train. And there was old soldiers in my compartment as well as me, youngsters. And the old soldiers said it would be over by Christmas.
One of the things that I most like about the interviews is that they give you an insight into what life was like. What oral history is brilliant at is bringing home the mundanities of life, the actual nitty-gritty of life in the raw, in the trenches. Not perhaps the date something happened or even why it happened, but just what it was like to be there, what it was like to experience it. That sort of stuff doesn't appear in letters to Mum. People bring something to life with a story. But there is a big problem with oral history. And that is actual battle moments. Because you ask a policeman, if there's a violent incident, you ask the witnesses and they'll all give different accounts. And that's because they can't actually remember, because they go into shock. Everything closes down in their head. They don't know what's happening. And this is the case in oral history. In most people, they're in a sort of cloud. The details are imprecise. They often seem to be alone on the battlefield, and then suddenly someone's with them, and then they've gone away again. And it's all very blurred, and it's more impressionistic about fighting. It will give you the idea of what it was like, but it will not give you the actual details, because they never knew them.
Then we went up the river, Seine up to Rouen. And on the way up, it was a lovely voyage up the river. And we saw some of the French soldiers, our first view of the French soldiers. Red trousers and blue coats. Vive l'anglais, vive l'anglais, they were saying.
You were on the train, all on the top, and it was only going very slow. The footboards were full of soldiers hanging on, you know what I mean? It would be towards the end of August, third week in August, something like that. And we passed through some beautiful gardens, and the peaches were just blinking ready. And I thought to myself, well, I'd like a couple of those peaches. So I made my way to the front of the train, on the footboards and on the top, till I got to the engine. And then I jumped off, where there was a garden there. It must have been a mother and daughter by the looks of them, probably a woman about 40 and 20 or something like that. And I pointed to the peaches, and they pointed to my cap badge. And the idea was that if I gave them my cap badge, they would give me some peaches. I let them have my cap badge for 2 peaches. And then I managed to run back and got on the footboard almost at the end of the train.
And I remember us going through fields and fields of grapes. The vendage, and all the men were mobilised. It hadn't been taken. And I'd never seen fields of grapes before like this. I remember that.
Sergeant Thomas Painting, Lance Corporal Joe Armstrong and Private Basil Farrer remember their journey to the front. Most had no idea what awaited them. Those who returned did so as changed men, to a changed nation. Many never truly left the trenches behind them.
Big, right overhead, whopping big black bus. Of course, I was new to that. We were all new. But that was my first reaction to shell fire. I mean, I was innocent.
It didn't frighten you much,
It didn't frighten me. My God, I got frightened later. Very, very often. Scared stiff.